It says we're live.
Hey, good morning. Good morning, everyone. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to trick you there, Michael. Welcome to our first session. I am not Ricardo. My name is Sarah. I'm helping out here this morning for our vendor hall sessions. So to start, we want to say a big thank you to Rapid SOS for being a diamond sponsor of the Dare to Be Great conference. And this morning we have a treat for you. We have Jameson Peavyhouse, who is the Director of Public Safety for Rapid SOS, and Michael Hirsch, who's the Product Manager for SiriusXM Connected Vehicle. So take it away, guys.
Well, good morning, folks. Thank you for showing up in this really early morning. Apparently in the green room, there was not coffee. We had to bring our own coffee this morning, so we'll be sipping throughout, just like I hope y'all are as well. Today, I'm joined by Michael Hirsch from SiriusXM, and you're probably thinking, SiriusXM, I thought this was a connected vehicles presentation, and it is. And so I'm really excited about this because I think that you're going to be blown away by what you're going to see today. Some of you may have already been taking calls from SiriusXM, and I think it's really important to understand that process. And today we're going to walk through that from the moment of incident all the way through the dispatch function and how ACN Plus and telematics is really changing the way that we respond to events in crisis. So a quick introduction. I will let Michael go first, and then I'll tell you about myself. So go ahead, Michael.
As Sarah mentioned, I am Michael Hirsch. I'm a product manager at SiriusXM Connected Vehicle Services. Been with the company about 10 years now, mostly as an engineer, and primarily working in vehicle communications and data, which I'll speak to more in just a minute.
Yeah, and Michael made me change my profile picture because apparently the first one I had up for the actual Dare to Be Great, he's like, you kind of look like you're on a dating site or something, man. So I was like, I'll change my profile picture. So it was cringeworthy. But I'm Jameson Peavyhouse. I'm sure most of y'all have either met me or know me from my time with Nina as a past president, but also working with the state of Tennessee. I spent about 20 years in the comm center here in Tennessee and then 3 years at the state for training. And really excited to join Rapid SOS last October. Currently the Director of Public Safety here at Rapid SOS, leading a team that has over 460 years of experience in the comm center. And I don't want to gloss over that fact. That's half a millennia of experience in our public safety team supporting the functions on the folks on the front line. So just a fantastic group of people I get to work with every single day. So today we're going to talk a little bit about SiriusXM and not the radio side. So Michael, can you tell me the difference between the radio side and the telematics side and talk about the connected vehicles? Uh-oh, we lost Michael.
Okay, I'll try to get him back.
Okay, no worries. Well, I can read from the screen just as well as he can. So SiriusXM, when you talk about connected vehicles versus what we hear on the radio, right? I have a Jeep Wrangler, and we have SiriusXM connected vehicle services in that Wrangler. Now, we're not talking about the actual radio side of the house. We're talking about the connected vehicle portion where it's data that's linking the sensors in the vehicle to a connected SiriusXM. There he is. He's back. Monitoring center.
I'm having some issues with my connection apparently because it just bounced me.
No worries. I just picked up where you left off. I have beard envy for Mike, so I mean, anytime he can drop off camera, it makes me look better. So go ahead and talk about connected vehicles, man.
Wow. Yeah. As Jameson was touching on, everybody is aware of SiriusXM Audio, which is kind of the mothership. But SiriusXM Connected Vehicles has been in this space for over 20 years. We focus on connected vehicle communication, getting information out of vehicles. We have call centers that take the emergency calls for brands like FCA Connect, Toyota Connected, Nissan Connect. Because we're white labeled, almost no one knows that we're in this space. But we have been here for over 20 years. We have over 12 million active connected vehicles on the road, 15 active OEM programs at the moment. And one of the interesting things, you can see some of our call numbers there on the screen, the 5,000 ACN calls, the 65,000 SOS calls. Those numbers are our average monthly volumes, but those are for our incoming calls. So what we do is we actually have a dual agent dispatch model where we have a primary agent that's talking to the customer in the vehicle. And then if there's a need for emergency services, then we'll get a second agent and handle the dispatch to 911. And the second agent has access to any information that's gathered by the primary agent. But in that way, without sacrificing hardly any time, we can screen any calls that don't require an emergency response. And I think that's one of the big things that we bring in terms of value to the chain, because you can see up there 65,000 SOS calls a month. And I would bet that we actually dispatch maybe 15 to 20% of those calls, because the majority of SOS calls are, oh, my kid was playing with the button. Oh, I was messing around in my car. I didn't realize that was that. Oh, sorry about that. And then, of course, you do have SOS calls where there's a health emergency or somebody's following me. There's road rage, very serious incidents. But by giving that up front, we help keep down some of the calls that aren't emergency calls.
And I think there's two things I kind of circle back on here, Michael. Can you explain what white label means for those of us in public safety who may not be familiar with that term in B2B?
Sorry about that. Yeah.
No worries.
So, SiriusXM connected vehicles, like to use Fiat Chrysler of America, for instance, they have their FCA Connect and FCA Guardian branding. But behind the scenes, that information is coming to SiriusXM connected vehicles, and we're handling the actual call handling. And if dispatch is needed, it goes on to ECC sites around the country as appropriate. But that's called a white label because we're kind of hidden behind the scenes, and they put their own label, FCA Connect, FCA Guardian, over the top of that, which is one of the reasons why when you hear SiriusXM, everybody thinks of satellite radio and almost nobody thinks of us.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally get that. And that's a really good point. And back to your call volumes, that's per month. That's incredible.
Go
ahead.
That's a per month call volume across our active programs today.
That's fantastic. And I want to highlight the second part of that is the dispatcher call taker model you have, right, which really speeds time to dispatch on those incidents that require emergency services. And we talked about this quite extensively yesterday about how, you're taking calls for service from a vehicle, whether it be an accident with ACN Plus or there be, an SOS button. And y'all quickly screen that, say, hey, this needs emergency dispatch. And the dispatcher's already calling the comm center with the same data while the call taker is still on the phone person in the vehicle. And I think that's important for us to understand. It's not to where we're taking a call and going through the entire process and then we're shipping over to be dispatched after we complete that call for service. Right. So y'all are following the same model that many ECCs across the U.S. are following, which is this simultaneous, I'm taking a call, but I'm also dispatching resources at the same time. So kudos for that.
As I'm sure ECC agents are far more aware than even we are, a lot of times you get somebody who's shaken up. They've just been in a traumatic event. Once our agent says, oh yeah, this person is definitely going to need emergency support, then we can start that dispatch process with the dispatch agent while our primary agent tries to calm down the person in the vehicle, tries to gather more information, how many other cars, information that we can't get any other way than talking to somebody on site. But that way we're moving that process in parallel to the actual dispatch, so we're not slowing things down.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I think everybody that's on this webinar here can understand that process because it really does expedite the call for service to dispatch function. That's great. All right, next slide. A little bit about Rapid SOS. I'm sure everybody in the country understands what we do and who we are, but we want to explain it one more time. If anybody's new or just coming into the industry, this might be your first time interacting with Rapid SOS. Rapid SOS basically takes data from IoT, Internet of Things devices, sensors, phones, vehicles, connected buildings, smart homes, and we pass that data through to the correct comm center at time of call. And that data is actionable information, and we parse that data in a way that telecommunicators can understand and operationalize that data on the fly. We highlight at the very beginning of this, the depth of the team, public safety at Rapid SOS. And part of that process when we bring on new data sources, we take that data source through the public safety team so that we make sure that it's applicable for telecommunicators, right? And we're constantly refining that. I was watching on one of the Facebook groups here, I think 2 nights ago, talking about, hey man, y'all just so fast. So many updates come out so fast every week or so. And like, it's because we're constantly just crafting that to make sure that that data source is actionable, it's timely, and it's geo-referenced. And we'll make sure that happens on every single call. So on the right-hand side of that fence, right, you see where we're sending data to emergency communication centers, to the health systems that are tied together with us, first responders, and of course emergency contacts and those. So it's a huge platform. We're doing about 400,000 incidents every month. Just a few more than SiriusXM, but SiriusXM has been our partner for a while now. And man, the amount of data we're seeing flow through the system into comm centers has been pretty incredible. And we're going to show you what that looks like here in just a few moments. So go ahead, Michael. I'll let you take this one, sir.
Sure. So we all know why we're really here, and that's about saving lives. There's about 100 motor vehicle accidents a day. That might be down a little bit right now with less driving during the pandemic, but there were 39,404 in 2019. And unfortunately, we can't always have an optimal response time because of where units are in the field, because of other emergencies going on. We've got some data here from some studies. It says it's 10 to 19 minutes for an average response time. But then from there, you have to actually get the person to where care can be provided. So 35 to 55 minutes for those fatal crashes to actually receive support. That's what we're trying to work on. One of the studies that we found and looked at was this one from Salt Lake that said even a 1 minute decrease in ambulance response time led to a 17% reduction in the total number of deaths. And so, automatic collision notifications, they really haven't changed much in the last 20 years or so. And there's a lot of reasons for that. There's a lot of fragmentation across our country between different ECC sites. We don't have a national standard or any focus. So, different states, different regions, counties all have different approaches to solving the same problem. And so that's been a real challenge to improve the automatic collision notification process because there's so many different problems that have to be solved. It has to be a custom fit solution for just about everybody for every ECC site. And that makes it a real challenge. But this is the driving factor right here. How can we make things better? How can we speed things up? How can we give more accurate and more complete information so that ECCs can handle these sites better? How can we make sure that the right response reaches a crash scene? What is the best way to provide that data? And so that's why SiriusXM Connected Vehicles has been looking for a while now and has partnered with Rapid SOS to try and bridge that gap, to get more data faster and more accurately to the ECCs.
Michael, I've shared this with you before, and that 1 minute, it doesn't seem like a lot. We know we have the model that when seconds count, right? And those seconds do count. And I can tell you that one of the primary reasons I left the comm center and went to work for State Tennessee was an incident to where it was a motor vehicle accident that was first on scene, and that 1 minute. If we could have dispatched resources at time of incident instead of the time that somebody actually came across the accident and found it, I would probably still be in the comm center today because we lost a child in that incident. And if we'd gotten there a little bit sooner, just a little bit sooner, we could have affected a better outcome for that patient. And just because the delay in time from the incident occurring to the time of call to the time of dispatch, all those things play into patient viability. And as telecommunicators, we understand, man, those calls stick with you a long time. That's been 5 years now, 4.5. And I still remember, talking to this girl right before she passed away, and just understanding the depth of what that meant to me, but also the responders on the scene and that family. And that 1 minute, we look at data all day long and numbers and, if we do this, then X and Y and et cetera. But as telecommunicators, we understand that 1 minute change is life changing. And I just really appreciate the partnership that we have, man, and what we're doing today. And we'll talk a little bit more here in a minute about how we can operationalize this data to even affect a faster outcome for those patients. So let's talk about a change in mindset. for telecommunicators. This is Dare to Be Great, right? And I had the great opportunity to be here last year with y'all folks, and just a fantastic time. And part of that was really pushing the envelope on, if we're going to be great, how do we change our mindset to ensure that we understand the new things that are coming out? We need to start embracing those things and using those things for the betterment of our public and for our responders. So I'm going to talk just for a moment about first-party data sources and third-party data sources. So I know it's very early, so bear with me just a moment. When we have the traditional landline telephone, right, or residential business phone line, right, those folks register that phone number, they pay their bill to some kind of telco, and that telco keeps a record of who owns that address and who owns that phone number. That telco then sends that information, that customer record, up to an ALI database provider, automatic location information. I'm sure you're all aware of this, right? And when you have a 911 call, what do, right? We look at the ALI screen, and it may let's say something like, hey, Joe Smith lives at 235 Franklin Street in Hutchinson. And that ALI record is data about that person who has that actual account. But because this information comes from a consumer, and then it goes to a telco, and then it's uploaded to some facility here in the United States where it's stored, and it just sits there, and it waits, and it waits, and it waits at a third-party provider. And then a 911 call may or may not happen. When a 911 call does happen, we ask for that information. What do you have? Well, 7 months ago, Joe Smith had an address here, and it ties to this phone number, so here's what I have. That's considered third-party data. It's coming from a third source, not from the incident scene, not from somebody on the scene, not from a sensor on the scene, right? It's third-party. And one of the primary reasons that we ask 911, where is your emergency, is because we know that sometimes this data can be incorrect. It may not be accurate, particularly with phase 2 wireless and phase 1 wireless. And it's important for us to continue to ask that question.
Yeah, Jameson, just before you go on,
yeah.
I did a lot of work with cellular data when I first came to SiriusXM. And yeah, it was a real eye-opener for me. I mean, you've got the wired case here where you're coming from a landline, and you kind of touched on the cellular. But that was a real surprise to me, how inaccurate cellular location information could be, because you're triangulating off of towers, and the tower echo may not be perfect. You may only have 2 towers, which gets you an approximate corridor. So ALI data, when it comes to cellular, or if you're in a really rural location, you may only have a single tower, and it's a really approximate location. So being able to get away from having that kind of approximate location into something more concrete is a real challenge with third-party data sources.
It is, and we're helping to solve that issue, right, with additional information, additional data. The NENA I3 standard about additional data is talking about how do we take information from sensors, from GPS, from Bluetooth, dead reckoning, all these other devices are sensors that we have on our phone, but that also translates into sensors in vehicles, in homes, in connected buildings, et cetera. So let's talk about first-party data sources. I'm going to have a couple of examples here really quickly. So one of those, like apps and services. So apps on your phone, like if you have an Apple device and you put in your information about your health and about your emergency contacts at time of call, that information goes to the Rapid SOS clearinghouse and gets delivered to you in the comm center, and you have access to all that information, right? So if you have someone call and says, oh, I see a person here on the ground and they're wearing a medical alert bracelet. And you're like, okay, what's the name on there? Or what's the number on that medical alert bracelet? You can query that in Rapid SOS portal and be able to pull that information up. That's huge, right? That's first party data about that person at time of incident. We also have images, videos. He says here delta. Delta means a change. So a change from where the start location was to the end location. That's coming directly from a device or a sensor on the scene at time of incident. And I keep saying time of incident because with sensors today, we can measure when the incident actually occurs and get the data as soon as it occurs. We don't have to wait for the phone call. So many times we're seeing from our customers, hey, I'm seeing incidents pop inside of Rapid SOS portal a minute, 2 minutes, or 3 minutes before somebody actually calls me and tells me what's going on. And that's fantastic because it's a faster response that we have for our public. Secondly, home security is huge right now. The signals that we're sending from home security sensors, those type of sensors, smoke alarms, fire alarms, et cetera. There's also weapon detection in that one. That's a pretty cool one for connected buildings, actually detecting weapons on a person as they enter into a building. Again, sensor-based, using AI in the background, telling us that, hey, there is someone with a weapon at a school, federal building, county building, municipal building, whatever it may be, that may be a gun-free zone, and being able to say, we have someone here with a weapon on site. Let's dispatch a resource or let somebody on site know. We talked about healthcare a little bit. But the one we're talking about today really is telematics, the actual sensor-based information from the vehicle at time of incident. And Michael's going to go into here about the depth of that sensor information that we're seeing today on all these accident calls. But it could be VIN, make, model, color. It could be occupancy, like who was sitting in what seats and how do we know that? Airbag deployment, velocity. So those are really contextual things that the data that we get from that vehicle is first party data. It is the ground truth. Now, you could have a person call and report what's going on in that accident, right? They could say, oh, yeah, there's a bad rollover over here, and I think the airbags are deployed, and it looks like there's 2 people inside. Again, that's that information that we're getting from the caller. We know from firsthand, we know that callers are not always the most accurate source of truth, right? No, we saw a hit and run. It was a 4-door. I don't know. It looked like a sedan. I'm not sure. And we pull a vehicle over and it winds up being a 2-door sports car. First party data from sensors from the vehicle tell us exactly what's going on without the need for cutting through the emotion, understanding of, what is a make or model? What does that mean for the person who's calling it in? And they may not understand that. Having the information firsthand really does play well into how we expedite and have more accurate responses for our folks in the field. So, Michael, give me a little bit of background about ACN Plus and what you're sending through today.
So, thank you. And ACN Plus is SiriusXM connected vehicles' first major push into this space to drive more data. It gives us a real-time data connection to 911. The keys there, always the first primary absolute requirement is where is the emergency? Yep. And so by moving away from our agent getting the GPS and then verbally communicating, an approximated location to a 911 operator, we can push that GPS data directly through. And then the 911 operator there's your GPS right there. You know exactly where it is. And not only is that faster, but it's also more accurate, because anytime SXM gets a GPS, and this is true of any solution like this, the GPS comes into one call center. We're using a mapping tool to get an approximated location. Okay, they're at about the corner of 5th and Main. And then we're expressing that, they're about the corner of 5th and Main. Well, that's usually pretty accurate because we have good mapping tools, but it's not as accurate as getting the GPS information directly to the dispatcher.
Right.
So that improved accuracy there in location is a big thing. Even more than that, Jameson touched on sensors from the vehicle. We have additional data. We know what kind of car it was. We know the make, the model, the color. We know the customer who's associated with that vehicle. If that customer has a medical profile, then that information can be provided. And as a really nice thing about that medical profile, it doesn't go to the car company. It doesn't even go to SiriusXM connected vehicles. It goes directly to the people who can action on it and, actually help people with it, the 911 team. So it goes to that ECC site. And then vehicle information, Jameson touched on some of the sensors that are in cars today. But one of the things that I really want to emphasize is there's information available today. And there's information coming in the next generation of cars and the next generation. There's video, there's sensors, there's biometrics in the car. We're building a platform so that all of that data, whatever will enhance ECC response capability can be added to that platform over time as it becomes available. Because a lot of the cars on the road today, they're older. We're always going to have GPS. We're always going to have make, model, and color information, and we're always going to have customer information. But then what other information is available? Well, that's going to vary by vehicle. An older car is going to tend to have less. A newer vehicle is going to have a richer data set. But by building a platform where all of the data we receive can be provided to the ECC sites, it gives you better data to work from. And especially, we've been working with a number of different ECC sites that, are looking into NENA and APCO standards for crash severity modeling. And if we can provide that raw data so that you can do whatever crash severity modeling is appropriate for your location, then that allows you to make a better response as well. I think the other really big one I want to hit on, Jameson touched on occupancy. That's a huge one. A lot of cars these days have occupancy detection monitoring, which is basically pressure sensors in the seats. A lot of times, too, they can detect whether seatbelts were fastened or not. And obviously, if we can know immediately, even if it's a really bad wreck and no one in the vehicle is capable of responding, if we can know, hey, at the time of the accident, there were 3 people, they were all belted in, but we've got a front offset impact and the vehicle rolled after the fact and all of these airbags went off, then A, how many people you're looking for in the vehicle, and B, that gives you a much better idea of the situation you're coming into when you arrive on scene.
You think about that from the dispatch standpoint. Pardon me. We think, man, that's a lot of data. What do we do with that? And and we have to stop for just a minute. Again, thinking outside that box, daring to be great in our next evolution of 911. We've had additional data for years, all right? And I don't mean the contextual data we're getting today. I'm talking about additional data since the first 911 call. When the telecommunicators on the phone and says, oh, yeah, I'm hearing some background noises. I think there's a fight going on. Sounds like maybe weapons. Somebody said something about a gun. And we're trying to get additional data from an analog source, right? Through our ear, auditory source. We're taking that information, we're processing in our brain, we're typing it into a computer system, CAD or whatever it may be. And then we're turning around, keying up a radio, and we're reading it off the screen back to the responder. So what we've done here with additional data, is particularly with automatic crash notification, is taking that information that you've been getting in an audio source and sending it to you already pre-scripted, already into a format that you understand, the symbols, color, year, make, etc. Being able to see that really quickly, but also giving the information that you may also get from another caller passing by. Yeah, I'm on Interstate 40. I just saw a terrific accident. I couldn't stop. It like there was a rollover. I don't know how many people were in the vehicle. I couldn't stop. I had to keep going. But now we have from the vehicle sensors, we can say exactly where that car is at. We don't have to guess, they're somewhere around the 208 mile marker. I'm not really sure. We know exactly where they're at. We know how many times it may have rolled, how many occupants were in the vehicle, the airbag deployment, what the speed of the vehicle was at impact. Those are massive for us to understand mechanism of injury so we can dispatch appropriate resources. Because as you know, as telecommunicators, think about if I know there are 4 occupants in a vehicle traveling 75 miles an hour that rolled 3 times, that's a different level of response than somebody called and said, hey, I think I saw somebody run off the roadway here on I-40. Different response. And that really impacts the lives of the folks that we are really hired to serve. So that's just a fantastic.
Actually, one last point, James.
Go ahead, Michael. Yes, sir.
On ACN Plus, I do want to make the point. ACN Plus is a branding thing. So that's the trademark for the service, the platform we're working to build here. But I do want to emphasize, like, anytime we have an emergency dispatch call, we're using this. Yep. Certainly, there's going to be more data in a crash event because you're going to have the airbags and where the impacts were and the speed. But even for an SOS event, somebody's following me. Okay, well, that needs to be dispatched, obviously. Somebody's chasing me. It's road rage event. And using ACN Plus as the platform, then that SOS call can be passed to the ECC site, and they'll have the location. And let's just use that road rage example. As that person continues to drive, you'll be able to see where they're going and their path and be able to better dispatch there rather than saying, oh, well, they were here and they're headed in that direction.
Yeah.
So you'll still get that vehicle information. You'll still get that location information for any emergency call coming from SiriusXM CV. But obviously there's a richer data set in a crash event.
That's fantastic. And also, if you just take a second, Michael, and talk about stolen vehicles and what y'all do with stolen vehicles.
Sure. We do stolen vehicle tracking. So when a customer unfortunately has a vehicle stolen, which happens far too frequently, certainly, once the incident has been reported to the police, then we can do vehicle tracking through some of the same sensors. You can put the vehicle into a tracking mode, get that information returned to our call center, and report that as well through our agent dispatch model so that it can be reported to whoever can go track that vehicle down.
And again, that's just things that we've never had before, right? Somebody call and say, oh, somebody stole my vehicle. Oh, okay. Well, let's go take a report. Good luck to you, sir. But at the end of the day, if we say, oh, wait, do you have SiriusXM? Do you have connected vehicles platform? Yeah, I do. Well, let's see if we can find that vehicle for you. That's fantastic. Sorry, folks, my Tennessee allergies are killing me this morning. So what do we do on the Rapid SOS? We talked a lot about the side of bringing all that data in from the vehicle, to SiriusXM, what are we doing? So in Rapid SOS portal and your integrations, we're in over 4,800 of the comm centers across the United States. That's just, the depth is just crazy. And so this data is possibly available to you today. If not, reach out to us. There'll be an email at the very end of this. You can reach out and we can work with you on that piece. The data sources that we're seeing today: vehicle event, year, make, model, color, the customer profile. And we're going to show what that looks like and explain it, the precise location of that vehicle, the speed at time of crash, the crash telemetry, the occupant detection, airbags, rollovers, seatbelt status. So we know somebody's in a vehicle, not just from the pressure, but were they wearing their seatbelt? Was it engaged? And the medical history, like Michael hit on earlier, of that person with that vehicle. So just quickly, let's look at that, what that actually looks like. And so this is for all your Rapid SOS portal users. We also just do integrations. It's available in our API. So I want to kind of point out a couple of things here. Michael, keep me true here to make sure I'm staying on point. But here's the location of the incident. This is typically a drop pin, and when we click on it, it actually gives the information. And so we think that this address is reverse geocoded to 991 Keller Parkway in Texas. But here's the actual lat long of the vehicle, right? We know exactly where it sits. We've updated telematics crash information. It will notify you that, hey, this is a telematics call for service. So you may have 6 or 8 calls coming in that are 911 calls from cellular devices or whatever it may be, reporting the accident, but you will see this one. It says telematics information. You'll know that, hey, I can go right to this call and look at the data and get contextual information about this incident, that I don't have to rely on a bunch of callers telling me things that they think they saw or may have saw. We can see actual vehicle information that expedites our response. Secondly is there's 2 things here. There's a monitoring center piece and the driver information. So Michael, can you tell me about the monitoring center piece and what this is? And then let's talk about the driver information.
Sure. The monitoring center, that's SiriusXM connected vehicles in this case. That's, of course, our information. The number there is a callback number into our call center, and it's also linked with this data event within the Rapid SOS portal. So there's an easy link between, okay, we need initial information from SiriusXM. We're going to have to call back. There's your number. You don't have to ask for it and verbally transcribe it from the SXM agent. But it also links to this data for the event in the portal.
Yep, exactly. Now the driver information is the vehicle owner, right? That's their name, and this number that's showing up here. I asked you a question about that yesterday. This number, is this the vehicle number or is this the owner's number for the vehicle?
that is the owner number in their account in our system, and I would say we have about 95% of the accounts in our system are linked to a customer provided, typically a cell number, so that you can get directly in contact with the owner of the vehicle as needed. So yeah, you have the number for SiriusXM, that callback number, and then you have the number of the customer. So you're not getting the vehicle number, like to call into the vehicle telematics or anything like that. These are the specific numbers that we think will be of the most use to the ECC sites.
That's amazing. And we're going to talk about medical conditions, right? So high blood pressure, their allergies or medications or blood type. That's important for us when I think about how many calls we get. I think I passed someone sitting on the side of the roadway and they're slumped over the steering wheel. If that person has been actually hit the SOS button prior to the medical incident and we know they're insulin dependent diabetic, that changes our response type, right? If we know they have cardiac issues and they're listed here inside their profile, we know that this is probably a cardiac event, and we might want to expedite the actual EMS response while we're also sending law enforcement. And again, providing that higher level of service in this next generation environment based upon contextual first-party data about that incident. And then below you see, if you scroll down, you see all the vehicle information, and you will also see like the sensor information that you feel free to use as you see fit for your operations. And we'll talk about policies here in just a few minutes as well. So Michael, I'm going to pause a moment. I'm going to stop sharing my screen because I think you want to take a quick moment to show a video about how this actually works together.
Sure.
That's 2 good looking guys on the screen right there. You know what?
Going into a call blindly takes time away from the care you're going to render to a patient. Once you get to a scene, you need to assess the scene, assess your safety, evaluate the patient. It really puts time on the clock for you. A medical helicopter arriving at that scene by the time we arrive is critical. It really is.
By working with Rapid SOS, we're able to transmit vehicle crash data, driver data, and sometimes medical data as well to the first responders as quickly as possible.
Patient care is our goal. We can respond easier, quicker, and more appropriately with the additional information.
By sending that automatically through the Rapid SOS platform, the telecommunicator can receive all of that rich data at their fingertips to help validate and verify the information that they're being told. We are partnered with over 4,700 911 centers across the country, covering over 92% of the United States population. We've become a trusted partner of the 911 community and the public safety community to help improve and create efficiencies in that response to the emergency call for service.
The impact of saving time en route to a call is saving lives, without a doubt.
Many OEMs already have a very strong brand promise, which is centered around protecting their customers. And what we're doing with this new process is we're taking this and turning it into a data stream. And what that lets us do is add a lot more value on top of the traditional automatic crash notification service, leveraging the information the vehicle can provide.
When companies work together in concert and provide better service to customers, enabling 911 professionals to do the very best job they can do. I mean, that's fantastic.
Every once in a while, an opportunity comes along to make people's lives not only better, but safer. And that's the thing that I think is really exciting about this product. And I can't wait to get it in market and help save more lives.
Having this telematics data is going to answer a lot of questions for us that otherwise would be unanswered.
Second, save lives. Driving a more informed decision-making process is going to help save lives.
Thanks, Michael. And I'll just highlight, that video is right when we started launching this effort. And now we're doing literally hundreds of calls a week to the platform, impacting the lives of citizens all across the U.S. And it just blows my mind about the kind of impact that we're having today. So I'm going to share my screen again. I'm going to show you what that actually looks like. Oh, you did that one already. So let's talk about who are we protecting today.
So today we're already in market.
Sorry. Go ahead.
We're already in market with FCA vehicles. So Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Alfa Romeo, and Ram vehicles on the road today. We are in the process of launching with another partner who I'm not at liberty to say yet. We have a couple other of the equipment manufacturers that we are working with that we're getting closer to launching. We're trying to bring this to everybody we can service because we think this is a great opportunity to provide that richer data set to help save more lives. And we're making this as widely available as we can.
Yeah, and I, you look at some of these names up here, and I'm a big Jeep person. I think everybody who knows me knows that. And having that information at my fingertips, whether I'm traveling up and down the interstate, or I'm off-roading, or I'm in some state park somewhere and something occurs, for me that's incredible peace of mind. It's not just having the access to something that, I might have a crash one day. Anything could happen, and having access to the SOS function of that, it's just fantastic. And so, again, thanks for that. My wife's a big Dodge fan. She likes big engines and going fast, so it's applicable for her too. So what are we actually doing? I'm going to show you today. This is data that we recaptured over the last month. I apologize. Over the last month of all the SiriusXM incidents. These are crashes that we deliver data to a telecommunicator in a comm center over the course of 30 days. I want to note as this plays out, these are not just inside of urban areas. They're not just on interstate highways, right? They're also in rural areas. They're also in off-road areas like off-road vehicle parks. And so we're seeing this plethora of data being pushed out, and this is just 30 days. When we talk about hundreds of calls being processed, these are calls that were actually answered, and the data was used by the telecommunicator. That's fantastic, right? This is where we're daring to be great, right? This is where we're actually leaning into the future of next generation, saying, you know what, data's here. For years, I've been listening to it, and now I can see it, I can validate that, and I can move on very quickly with this call for service and expedite that response. Next one. So some of the key benefits, Michael, I'll let you pick this up and then I'll kind of turn around and close about how we actually can operationalize this data.
Sure. So the key we've hit on a couple of times, we want to dare to be great. We want to deliver that critical vehicle data, that critical crash data directly to emergency communication centers. Our partnership with Rapid SOS lets us reach out. We talked a little bit earlier about how difficult it is to find a solution that works across the board because ECCs have so many different solutions in their actual call centers. So finding a way to make that platform reach to so many people is the key benefit of this partnership. We can get that accurate GPS data. We can get the accurate sensor data on site, real time for that emergency call. And this is kind of key. People are shaken up in an accident. People are not always the best observers, as Jameson's pointed out. Getting data directly from the vehicle, from the sensors in the vehicle where available, gets us data that is concrete and actionable, regardless of the status of the people involved. We can append that health and medical data for anybody who has a profile so that, they're already ready to respond to pre-existing conditions. As somebody who's allergic to penicillin, that's pretty important to me. I don't want, first responders having to deal with, my allergies in an emergency situation and coming in blind to that. And this one's a key as we look forward to the future. This is what we have today. This is what we can provide today, but it also gives us that platform to build on for tomorrow as we get more information, as automakers put more sensors in the vehicle, as autonomous vehicles can collect more data, as biometrics or Bluetooth for multiple devices in the vehicle become more available. We can enrich that data set. We can work with ECCs to say, here's what we need. Here's the order we need it in. How can we make the response better? How can we better convey that data to you guys so that you can take it and save lives with it?
Man, you hit on a great spot right there too. Now I'll talk just a little bit about our relationship with SiriusXM and Rapid SOS and the amount of time that we spend on calls, making sure that we understand how we're crafting that data, reviewing calls, reviewing incidents, make sure, okay, how do we make this one better? How can we make the next one better? And reaching out to ECCs, hey, can you tell them about the interaction here and what would have worked better for you? And that process we've been working through, again, goes to the depth of understanding of comm centers from Rapid SOS side and the depth of commitment to the comm center on the SiriusXM side. And so I don't think people see in the background. They think, oh, here comes more data, and here comes more data. So there are two things that we try to answer at Rapid SOS on the public safety side of this, right? One, does this solution meet our core values? But first and foremost, if it doesn't, let's go to the drawing board and try to make that work, because our core values are important. And one of those core values is ensuring that we deliver data to a telecommunicator that expedites that call for service and getting appropriate response to that person in need. The second piece is, does it make sense for the telecommunicator? We're not going to be in this standpoint. We're just going to shove data out there and not validate it and not put it in some kind of format where just because we can shove that out. That's not what we want to do here. And we spend a lot of time and effort now just refining and crafting and looking at better ways of doing this, reaching out deep into the comm centers across the U.S. and saying, how's this working for you? What can we do to make it better? Oh, we'd like to have a night mode. Cool. Give us a couple of weeks. Night mode. What's next? And I think that's incredible because, again, the public safety team is so committed to ensuring that we're doing what's right for the comm center. Right. And then we have our partners who are on the business side of this who are just committed to helping those in need, like SiriusXM and so many others. And like, we have the data. How can we make it work for you? For years, we have spent so much time and energy as telecommunicators trying to glean data from those folks who are just in that moment of crisis. Right. And they're like, okay, you got to calm down. I've got to get some information from you. You've got to tell me what's going on. Having additional data helps us to validate that much quicker and say, I see what's going on based upon sensors. I'm hearing you validate what I'm seeing on my screen, right? And that's much quicker to response for that. So very quickly, how do we operationalize first party data? And I have 4 points here, and I hope you're taking notes. First, Michael, do you have something?
No, I was checking about the hope you're taking notes.
Yeah, I hope you're taking notes. If not, you can watch this later. All right, so how do you operationalize first party data? One, provide training, deep contextual training for all the telecommunicators and your 911 staff, because it's important for them to understand, hey, when I'm logging in as a portal admin and I turn this feature on, what does that mean? What does this data mean for our folks? Are we trained on this data? How do we operationalize that? The second thing is create policies. I know, huge eye roll. Here it is Tuesday morning. It's barely 8 a.m. We're already creating policies. Create policies to ensure that we have access to all the available data and situational awareness tools for the start of every shift. What does that mean? Ensure that our Rapid SOS portal is up and running, right? That we can't sit there and say, have a call come in from SiriusXM, be like, hey, we have this terrific crash. Do you see it in SiriusXM? Oh, hang on a minute. Let me get logged in over here. We know those telecommunicators. We know those folks who don't log in at the beginning of the shift and they're not ready, right? They take their time coming in. They set up their station, and then a hot call comes in and they're behind the 8 ball. That's not being great, right? We know those people. Be the one who steps up and says, you know what, I'm coming in. I'm going to be there 5 minutes early. I'm going to be logged in, be ready to go. And when the hot call hits at 2 minutes past my shift, I'm going to be rocking and rolling. So create policies that ensure that we're logged into those, as well as our integrations to ensure that data is flowing into our cab, call handling, recorder, et cetera, so we can capture this information and be able to effect a more appropriate response. The second thing is create policies regarding first-party data sources and their impacts on speed to dispatch. What do I mean by this? We have always said that quality assurances should be non-punitive, right? Quality assurance is there to make us better. It's to ensure that we're providing quality and we're increasing that quality over time. For years, we've had, this way we had to ask certain questions about, hey, this particular call, we're going to ask this and this and this and this and this. And if you don't ask those questions, you get dinged for that. And that's totally understandable. We have to stop and think about what first-party data is doing for us today when it's delivering ground truth, sensor information that's not clouded by human judgment or human emotions or human interactions. And we can look at that data and say, this has already been answered, this has been answered, this has been answered, this has been answered. So today, when we have an incident come in, I apologize, folks. When we have an incident come in, right, and we see the information pop in Rapid SOS portal, here's an accident. I know it says telematics information. My phone rings, SiriusXM. Hey, we just had a crash. Do you see it in Rapid SOS portal? Absolutely. I'm just going to validate. Here's the location. All right. There's nothing else they're going to be able to tell you that's not already in that sensor information, right? That's ground truth, first party data. That's how we can expedite time to dispatch. What we don't need to do is have policies in place that require that telecommunicator to read off a screen about information that we know is already ground truth. So it's a blue car, yes. And it's a 2017, yes. And it's a Jeep, yes. And it's a Grand Cherokee, yes. We talked about 1 minute impacting the lives of so many people across the U.S. in that moment of need. And we're spitting that 1 minute validating data that's already been validated by the sensor that's coming from the vehicle itself. So how do we create those policies? Those are forward-leading things that we have to embrace as an industry. Michael talked about working with NINA and APCO, standards development, working with them on training, all those things. Those things take time. And so we're always looking for leaders to say, how do we do this today? The last thing is create consistent formatting for inputting additional data into your CAD event, right? To make sure that we're recording the information so we can go back and do all that. I just threw 4 huge workloads on this group this morning, right? And that's a big deal. So how in the world are you going to actually affect this for that call that may happen tomorrow? Well, just reach out to us, CSM at RapidSOS.com, and we have this information for you. Example policies. We have the training ready to go for all your telecommunicators, particularly for telematics and SiriusXM. It's deep training. It's a lot more than what you have here today. We can help you with setting up policies, procedures. We can work on you if you want to do in-person training or virtual training, whatever it may be. Just reach out to us. Now, I couldn't include everybody's emails over here on the left-hand side of the screen. So if you'll hit CSM at RapidSOS.com and ask any question, our team will reach out to you and we'll form that relationship with you to make sure that you understand how can we help you be successful. You want to be great. If you didn't, you wouldn't be here. Let us help you in that process. We're here to walk you through that process today. So that's it for us. Michael, any closing thoughts from you, sir, about how we can continue to push into the future and what may be coming down the pipe, or how we can impact public safety from a broad standpoint?
Just that we appreciate the opportunity to be here talking to y'all, and that, we spend a lot of time with Rapid SOS and directly reaching out to ECC sites, and the feedback we've gotten from y'all really helps. I know sometimes we get that, who are these people and why are they bothering us? Or, why is SXM calling our call center and, asking a question about whether we see data? So, as Jameson mentioned, there's going to be some policy, there's going to be some growth moments as we work to get this data to be part of it. But I think daring to be great means that we use the data that we have on hand, that we do everything we can to provide better support to the customers in the field. And just being a part of that, let me tell you, I've been working in the automotive industry for basically my entire career, 20 something years now. And I can't even tell you how good it feels to have a product that I truly believe in and something that I think really helps. And I think ACN Plus is that product, that platform that we've got a solid foundation now. Jameson already showed operation data that's live today, but something that we can grow on, something that we can work with y'all to improve and constantly move forward, constantly improve, and constantly offer that better safety and security to our customers out there.
That's fantastic. So I can't think of a better closing piece than that, because we all got into this industry because we wanted to help people, right? And that's the number one thing we hear when folks come in to apply for a telecommunicator role. Why do you want this job for? I want to help people. Cool. Let's not forget why we started this process, right? And this is one of those ways that we can help people with a much more efficient and faster response using first-party data like ACN Plus. All right, so I see Doug's inside the chat room today. Any questions from the audience? More than happy to answer any questions. We have about 6-7 minutes left. Any questions you may have, more than happy to try to answer those as we can. Hey, welcome back, Sarah.
Hey, Sarah.
Hey, good job, y'all. We do have a question from the audience. In cases of missing persons, would there be a way to contact SiriusXM to possibly track the vehicle?
So there's a technical answer to that, and there's a legal question to that. And the technical answer to that is that, yes, that is a capability that we have out there. The legal question is we have to be very careful about customer privacy. And many of the manufacturers, whether it be FCA or Nissan or Toyota, have their own privacy policy to protect their customers. So that's something that I know we're actively working towards, a policy that we can put in place for like police to be able to, send us a response with a report so that we, have the information we need to get it into that mode and do that kind of trafficking.
I would also say that we've heard from a response organization in a state that should not be named. They had a person whose vehicle was stolen, right? And the first thing they asked was like, "Hey, do you have SiriusXM?" They're like, "No, we never got that thing." He's like, "Hang on a minute." And so the chief of police calls SiriusXM and says, "Hey, we want to set up an account really quickly for this vehicle. Here's my credit card number." Okay, where's this vehicle at? And it was just like that quick and thinking outside the box, right? Just, you know what? I'm willing to give up my money as a chief of police to make sure we can find this vehicle for my citizen. Man, that's customer service.
Awesome. I love this because there's a lot of technology happening right now, right? And I think it's very intimidating for people in the centers just every day doing their job. And Michael, I think you touched on it. Like if you're getting a call from Rapid or if you're getting a call from XM, like answer it, because this is the bigger picture. This is what's going on, and it's going to provide this to you in your centers. Don't be intimidated. Don't be overwhelmed. Like, this is really cool stuff.
And that's one thing we've spent a lot of time on with Rapid SOS is how can that be best be presented? What's the order that needs to be seen? What's the order that the ECCs want to consume it in? And that's something we're continuing to refine and work with different ECC sites to ask, okay, is this good? How can we make it better? How can we improve it? Because there are so many more data streams becoming available today. And the whole goal here is to enhance ECC capability, to enhance that ability to save lives, not to flood people with extraneous data or too much data. And I think that's a balancing act.
It is.
I think that's something both in how the data is presented to make it understandable. And then also, I think one of the real advantages is if we can give you location information, vehicle information, and maybe some of the crash details, medical if it's available, then that's kind of like the fundamentals. And then if we have contact with somebody in the vehicle who can say, yeah, there's another vehicle involved, I can see a couple people, then we can pass that information along. But we've already kind of gotten the fundamentals for the call out of the way by having that first party data available.
That's fantastic. And again, reducing that stress on telecommunicator, we think that, you know, to your point, Sarah, oh, it's a lot of data, I'm not sure about this. I would rather have validated data than have an extremely emotional caller that can't tell me anything. Right. And it's the weight there of how can we reduce stress on telecommunicator, and data can help do that. Right. There's a lot of data there. You probably won't use it all, but that's okay. On every call, you're probably not going to. On the one call where it matters, it's at your fingertips, and you don't have to wait for a caller to calm down to give you that contextual information. Just a fantastic change that we're having right now in 911.
And you're saving the seconds.
Right. That's the idea.
All right. Any other questions?
Let me see real quick. Nope.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for getting up early this morning. Some of y'all are on the West Coast, and it started at like 5:45 a.m. So kudos to you. Go back to bed. But if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Mike or myself. Again, CSM at RapidSOS.com. We're more than happy to reach out and help you any way we can. So thanks again, Sarah, for moderating this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you guys very much.
Have a great day.